Monopoly by Grit.
Welcome to Monopoly, Season 2 and Episode 2. Today we are going to talk about the world of property management. This is such an important topic which a lot of people neglect on. A lot of people just talk about investing in properties, but after investing in properties, property management is the aspect which makes you money. Today we have Inshira, who is our head of property management. I thought there's no one else better than him to talk about property management because he's doing such a great job for our team over here. Welcome to Monopoly, Inshira.
Thanks, Naveen. It's a great opportunity to let the people know the things that we face when we go on the property management. It's just like not giving a property and someone renting a property. There is plenty things that's happening that no one knows. So I think this is something good that we have started. Let's get going.
All right. Before we get started, have you played Monopoly as a kid?
Yes, I did, but I never was good on it. And it was always my friends or my brothers who used to win it. So it was not a good experience, but I love playing it. Sometimes like cheating a little bit on Monopoly too. Of course.
All right, let's get into it. Talking about property management, let's talk about from a landlord's point of view or a property owner. What can they do to select a reputable company in the first place? What are your thoughts?
I would say, Naveen, it's the normal things that we do, but you need to be really careful. There are plenty property management companies that is in the market that you can go into. But you need to do your due research, like a market research on who is doing the best that they can give the return for you. The word of mouth, like ask a friend, someone's investing through someone. And the other thing is a Google review. I think that gives a good example. Like you will get both the good and the bad in there.
Yeah.
And the other thing is the company website. When you go into the website, you will understand what properties they have currently in the market and what things they do additionally than the normal property management. What they knew, like what are they good on better than a normal company.
Yeah, and also to get a referral, right? So if we can talk to a reference of someone who's already with them, there's nothing better than that, so that they can actually tell the investor or the landlord what their experience is, and that will give you a lot of confidence about that company.
100% right, Naveen. I think that is the best that you can get because they will tell you exactly what their experience is with that property management company and how happy they are and where that can be taken to.
Yeah. And what are the factors do you think investor should consider in selecting a company? Let's talk about that.
I would say most important thing that they will need to look into is the experience of the team.
Yeah.
Not the big name of the company. It could be a small company with a small portfolio, but the experience of the management team, and then comes the reputation.
Yeah.
And yes, because when the reputation counts, like they will always do something to keep their reputation going, and the quality of the portfolio. So there are things that you can answer. Like going forward, we'll talk more on that. But I think, it's the quality of the portfolio that is important too. That will have to be looked at.
Absolutely. I mean, it's all about the team who's on the ground, who's managing the properties. Because as an investor, if they're not getting the communication they need from the property manager, it's a fail. So you're absolutely right. I think it's the team behind the scene on the ground is absolutely critical.
Yeah, it is 90% communication in property management. I mean, how much? Because in property management, nothing's reliable. You don't get something saying that, okay, this happens because we expected this. It's everything unexpected. So it's communication. You keep both the tenant and the landlord informed. It's a lot about that.
Yeah. If you look at all these things, let's talk about the top 3 things that investor or landlord should be looking at in selecting a property management company.
Yeah. I would say the mindset of the property management company. Are they investor mindset? Like they have a mindset and like, if they have that, I think that would be the primary. Then how professional are they? When you approach them, how do they approach you back?
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I would say the technology and the response time, how much they are adding to the technology, because it's growing, vastly growing, and everything is getting like AI coming in and stuff. So there are lots of things that can be done. And I think technology and response time also is something that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Technology is catching up in speed, especially AI. I mean, using of these technologies in those companies is critical because the level of service can go into a different level.
Exactly, Naveen. Sometimes there is a fear that AI might take over the human perspective, but property management is human all the time. It's just that the value addition can be done by the AI, but the human touch needs to be there.
Yeah.
So that's a good example of how AI and human coordination will work through in the future.
Yeah, there's no way a robot can go and do an inspection. So that human element has to be there in property.
And the other thing is the touch of speaking to someone, Naveen.
Yeah. Okay, and in terms of the mistakes, what can go wrong, or what are the common mistakes have you seen a property owner might do in choosing a property management company?
I would say, Naveen, it's sometimes they go for pricing. We'll say the management fee.
Yeah.
You can never override the quality over pricing. Like, it's just always you need to be mindful. Like, someone's charging at like unexpected amounts of money is wrong, but it's not that. It's quality always you need to go for. But I can see in the market there was situations that we have refused some properties because they were simply deciding on the pricing, not the quality and the way that the service is provided. I think the quality is the most important thing that has been neglected by some of the landlords. Yeah, not everyone, but some.
Yeah. Everyone has to understand if it's cheap, there can be something wrong there. So
100%.
So quality over definitely the price. Just because someone is cheaper 0.5% or 1%, it doesn't mean that they are the best who can service you. It's all about the service.
It's all about right pricing, Naveen. Like, not only management fee, everything. We'll talk more on that.
Yeah. And let's talk about how do you think they can avoid these mistakes and doing the right thing and making the right decision about a property management company?
Yeah. As we said before, the experience of the property management team. So you should be able to talk to the property management team that is going to manage your property. I think that is the key thing that they will need to do. Talk to the property manager, have a chat, ask questions, ask direct questions like what sort of issues do you face, and like things that you have a question in your mind, and put them through. So if that property manager is able to give you that, and that means like, yes, that's a big yes for you to go for that property management company.
And we have had our institutionalized investors who have 5-6 properties always come to you or the team and ask questions before they hand over the portfolio, right? So that's the right thing to do. You're absolutely right.
It's always the case, Naveen, because despite like them having the experience, they still come to me and ask questions like, how often do you want to do the inspections on these properties? Same thing. They know that we do 6 months, but like they still come and ask me, how often do you do? Like, first inspection, when will you do it? And some even ask like, how often do I get my statements, which is mostly into technology now. And so those kind of questions can be sorted, and so that's why they approach and talk to us still.
We talked about landlords. Let's talk about tenants. As an investor or a landlord, or choosing a property, let's talk about what factors they should consider in a tenant before you give the green light for your property.
Yes, Naveen. I think main thing is the ability to pay the rent. There is a perception that it's the reference that we do. It is the reference as well, but the main thing you need to make sure is that they have the ability to pay the rent. Like, when you put a property into the market, you get about 10 to 15 applications within 2 to 3 days. But I think like I drop about 50 to 60 applications because they don't have the repayment capacity. So that's one critical factor. And the other thing is, again, the experience of the property manager. An experienced property manager will read the body language of the tenant, right? And so when they see that person, they will have that positive feeling. Okay, it's not 100% always, but it's you can say that person will say, okay, whether I have plenty landlords I have spoken to and said that, okay, I had this feeling, let's wait for the application. And when the application comes, everything is tick, 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 tick. And just you need to get the property to that person. Yeah. And then comes the past references. With the people coming in, everyone doesn't have a reference. So the first two factors I took as important because of that. Then we go to the references. If they have a reference, that we definitely need to look into. And the number of occupants in a property. Because people move in as two people and then slowly grow in the house. That's something that we have always seen. So that's where the inspections will count, and you need to count the number of shoes in front of the house. Then you will feel there was this property I went very recently. I couldn't go in, but literally there was only 2 people approved, and there was 6 pair of work boots outside the house, where I took the photos and came and asked the question from the tenants. Why? Because it's always good. Sometimes they might be using the shoes, but still we have to ask this question. So number of occupants and the number of pets, right? Yes, we don't say no to pets, but we need to be careful, what numbers. There was this application, I had 3 dogs and 2 cats in one property. That was pets more than the people who were living in. So it's just crazy. So you need to be really mindful of those kind of factors.
Yeah. No, very important point you mentioned, especially the income to the rental ratio. Some tenants think that they can pay, but they have no idea what they are going to get into. Sometimes we see applications, 60-70% of their income is the rent, which we know for a fact that they're going to get into trouble down the line. They might do the first month, second month, but...
Yeah, 100% right, Naveen. But I would say, yes, there are people who will have 60%, but we need to consider the application and the property too. Sometimes it could be a student with the current inflow of students coming in. There could be students who would be paying 60%. So then we need to look into other factors like what their uni cost is and how they are funding. The same thing, the visa approval process goes. Sometimes we have to go to that extent to go and have a look. So it's not the case always the 60 to 50. We sometimes approve that too, but that will all depend on the other factors.
Yeah. And the body language, that's very important too. You get the feeling if someone is not right. And when the moment you get that feeling in the gut, it's a red flag.
Yeah, 100% again, Naveen, because you're spot on everything. So all I want to tell you is on the body language is, if someone walks in and says, oh, this house is so nice. They literally walked in, right? They just didn't go inside the house. They say, oh, this is so good for me. And talk to the daughter and say, okay, this is going to be your bedroom. That's over enthusiasm to a property. So it's kind of, yes, they could be realistic too, but 80 to 90% of the time that over enthusiasm speaks a lot and says, okay, they are a bit of desperate and they are not getting anything else. That's why they are here.
Yeah. And so we talked about the landlords, we talked about the tenants. So let's talk about the responsibility of a property owner or a landlord in preparation to hand over a property to a property manager. They should be doing some stuff as well. Let's talk about the things they need to do to make sure this is a smooth run and to assist the property manager.
I would say as a landlord, Naveen, the main thing is to kind of understand, if you are a tenant, what do you look for, right? That will cover up the basic requirements of a property to be rented out ready.
Yeah.
I would say cleanliness of the property.
Yeah.
Not only internal, the externals too. Because when a tenant moves out, we look internal and external both. So we need to be fair by the tenant. Yeah. And then the other ones are the legislative ones, the safety checks, the gas, electrical checks that needs to be done every 2 years, and the smoke alarms that needs to be every year. So that if it is done already, that will be really good. But some landlords, they don't. They just wait until it's rented out and get that done, which can be. But we are not renting a property that's safe if that's not been done. I would like to talk on that, Naveen. And the other thing is the sufficient number of keys.
Yeah.
Some landlords I have experienced, they give just one set of keys and ask me to go to Bunnings and get another pair to give to two tenants. So I would say this needs to be ready at the time we are renting the property. We just can't ask the tenants to do it. I never ask the tenants to do it because we are encouraging people to get copies of keys. And then they will start getting in more people and giving the keys. So that's something. So the cleanliness of the property, the safety checks, and the sufficient number of accessible keys to the property are main factors in there that they need to look.
And the mindset of the landlord or the investor, because it's all humans, whether it's a tenant or a landlord, it's all humans who are going to live in the property, and everyone loves to live beautifully in a clean house where everything is provided to them. So the more you take care of the tenant will take care of you by probably renewing the leases or keeping the house tidy and clean.
98% of the time, Naveen, the issues that I had, like I didn't have issues in 98% of the cases on those properties that is clean, everything is done and given nicely. One thing is when we take it back, we know that this was in this state. Yeah. And we have every picture. We take about 1,000 pictures on an ingoing report, right? And that will be checked and we will know, okay, this is what we gave and get it back. 98% of the time we will get it back. Only 2% will be the bad tenant kind of a person. So yes, so it's very important that we get into their shoe and have that feeling, okay, is this house ready for me to live in?
Yeah.
And have a look and say, yeah, that's ready to go.
And is there any other information or documents which they need to provide the property management company before it's rented out?
Yes, Naveen. On cleanliness, they need to give the professional cleaning invoices to us. Yeah. We keep it on record. Yeah. And the safety checks, again, that will be certified by a licensed electrician, a gas, by a plumber.
Yeah.
And the smoke alarms can be done by an electrician. Most of these are done by one company now.
Yeah.
Which has made our life a lot easier. And the sufficient keys, yes, they need to keep a photo of the copy, and I would recommend for them to keep a copy themselves too. Yeah. Bad things happen, we need to be prepared. So always being proactive is recommended.
Talking about that, I just remembered something which one of the investors, he's a rent-vestor, he's renting right now, he's investing in properties. So he's a renter, he's a tenant himself. And he was asking me, his agent has asked him to go on a month-to-month contract. So he asked me, what are the risks I have in doing that? And can they kick me out anytime they want? I thought I should bring this up at the podcast today.
Yeah, it's like with the legislations in the Victoria, that's not a topic I want to, because we are encouraging people to get through things now. Yeah, it's whether it's a month-to-month lease after the first 12 months or whether it's another lease agreement, doesn't matter. Right? Because then the call is on the tenant's behalf. But the good thing is that person has been living in a property for 12 months. Yeah. So we know that person is good, right? If we want to take them out, we need to send a 90-day notice before the expiry of the first 12 months. After that, in Victoria, you literally can't take anyone out unless they breach the contract, which is highly remote, but things happen. Unexpected things happen, and sometimes tenants go bad, but I wouldn't say bad again. An experienced property manager will handle that situation professionally in a way that the tenant will be, because it's not only it is the landlords, but it is not only the landlords, it's the tenants and the landlords that we need to be in between and take care of all the time.
Let's talk about routine inspections. What are the important factors that a landlord should be looking at in a routine inspection report, and more importantly, how frequently the routine inspections should happen from their end?
It's a bit of a hard question, Naveen, but yes, I will tell you the key factors to look into, because people are living there and we need to understand when they live, there could be certain things that would have happened, but we need to keep a record. We'll say someone's drawn on the wall, right? It's not right. It's a breach. But are we going to ask the tenant to fix it immediately, or are we going to wait? The property management duty is to let the landlord know this has happened. I have advised the tenant. I have sent a breach notice, but they have to fix it at the time they vacate. I think that's the better way because, okay, the tenant will paint the wall with the landlord's approval, but what happens the next day again if that child draws, right? So I would recommend to look into those kind of things. So the main things you need to look into is whether the gardens have been maintained. I'll come from outside to inside. The lawns, the garden beds have been maintained, cobwebs cleaned.
Yeah.
And when you go in, you have to have that feeling when someone's living in a property clean. If not clean, you can smell it, I would say.
Yeah.
Because a clean house, you feel it the moment you step into the house.
Yeah.
And there could be things untidy, like a kid might have dropped the toys or dropped a packet of milk on the floor, not on the carpets, on the tiles I'm talking about. Okay. So those kind of things, like we can't pick those. We pick in, okay, have the floors been cleaned? Are the walls cleaned? Are they damage free? The worst thing I have seen is on the garages, right? The garages, it's vehicles that is parked and like the walls gets always dirty, and that can be expected at the vacation of the tenants only. So, and grease and grime on ovens and the range hoods, the dishwasher cleaned if provided, the sink is mold free, the bathroom shower areas, mold free and soaps come, and the other thing is leaks.
Yeah.
We need to be water and fire are the worst things. Like I would say water is the worst because it just damages, but the fire will just like take it off. You need to just gone thing. But water is a damage that you have to fix, but things could be really go bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So from a property owner's point of view, how can they stay on top of things? Because just because you hand it over to the property manager, as a owner, as a landlord, they need to make sure they're on top of it. Yep. Because if you just hand it over to your properties to a property manager and just relax, things may not go well. So what can they do to make sure they're on top of the game?
Yes, so I will talk on the Victorian perspective.
Yep.
So inspection can be done only every 6 months. You can do the first inspection in 3 months, but you need to make sure as a landlord that you receive the first inspection within 3 to 4 months, because you need to give a leeway in case the tenant's not available or the property management company had some issues on that particular day and they had to postpone the inspection. So you never know. So on a first inspection, 3 to 4 days. On the second on 6 to 7 months, I would say you need to let them. If that doesn't come into you, you need to follow it up. Because what I have felt is when you do that 6-month inspection and pick a little thing up, when you go on the next inspection, the tenants have fixed it. Because most of the tenants do these mistakes unknowingly. Yeah. Like 99%, right? I would say 99% do it unknowingly. Yeah. So when they are made aware, they do it. So you need to follow up those inspections are done. And just make sure the property management company gives you a call. Yeah. And talk to you and ask how things are, if there is anything, and how fast they respond, right? Yeah. I make sure that I respond within 24 hours. Sometimes it extends to 48 hours depending on the busyness of myself, or it'll depend on the teams, how they work along there. So the team usually responds within 24 to 48 hours now, I would say. Yeah. So that is very important. Because you ask a question expecting something, and if you have to wait 5 to 6 days to get some response, it's need to be. And I always do through emails, but I would recommend to do all communication. If you get a WhatsApp, just reply and say, okay, I have replied through the email, so that they know that we have done it. Yeah.
As you said, communication is the key. I think that's one of the... That can be a red flag for a landlord if the communication delays are happening on a consistent basis. That's a definite red flag of the property management team.
Always the case. Now, in property management is about communication, whether it's with the tenant or the landlord. The communication, you're the link between those. You can't beat it. Yeah.
And let's talk about the VCAT in the Victorian Tribunal. The VCAT procedure. What can the landlord expect, and how can they support the property manager to get a good outcome if it has to go to VCAT?
In property management, Naveen, VCAT should be the last resort,
Yeah.
the worst come to us scenario.
Yeah.
Because I think most of the things, again, communication, if you can talk to the tenants and the landlords, provide a solution. We'll say a rental arrears, a tenant goes arrears, and like if that tenant has been paying the rent on time and suddenly goes into arrears, there should be a reason. And we need to talk to the landlord and tell the landlord. And as a landlord, I would come again, you need to be prepared. The tenant could get sometimes up to 1 to 2 weeks arrears for some reason.
Yeah.
Because we can't beat the tenant and ask the tenant rent on the time.
Yeah.
So we can go various reasons, Naveen. It's very rarely that I go for rental arrears, but it's mostly for damage. So it's just 1 to 2% that could go. I won't say 1 to 2% even. It's just 1%.
Yeah.
That could go to the VCAT. It's a long procedure. We'll have to talk ages on that, Naveen.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Final point of discussion. Let's. What challenges do you face as a property manager, and what challenges can you advise the audience of as a property manager? What they can go through?
Yep. I would say, though I have been doing it for some time now, the biggest thing I get the issue is the expectation gap between the landlord and the tenant on the perspective of rent and maintenance, and working things through the legislative guidelines, right? When the market goes up, the landlord wants to, when the interest rates goes up, the landlord wants to increase the rent, but legislatively we can do once in 12 months.
Yeah.
So we need to be careful what we price at that time too.
Yeah.
Because at a time like this where everyone's going tough, right? And it's a rough time for everyone. We need to be careful. If it's a good tenant, when we increase the rent, are we going to increase the rent to the market price?
Yeah.
Right? So we'll say the current market is $500 a week, but what's wrong in giving it $490 or $480 a week to a good tenant, right? One thing is, if that good tenant leaves, we don't know. We always say the known devil's better than the unknown angel, right? So it's just, you never know. So one main factor is that losing a good tenant.
Yeah.
The other thing is, okay, the landlord will have to pay the letting fee, the advertising fee, and a waiting time. I would say there would be a 2-week waiting time, whether you have hundreds of tenants waiting or not, because we need to leave time for the tenant to move out and do the cleaning and check everything, keep everything ready for the next tenant to move in. And if there is anything, we need to get those fixed. So the landlord expectations on that perspective, but the tenant expectation is sometimes when the rent is increased by the landlord to $480 on a 500 market, right? They still ask it to be lower. Is it fair? Because they have provided something to you and they are finding it hard to pay at the moment too.
Yeah.
So the tenant needs to understand. So this is something at this time I'm struggling with the tenant. So that expectation gap and the maintenance. When a tenant says something's broken, they want it to be fixed immediately. But that is not the case. Tradies are hard to find.
Yeah.
And we need to get the quotes as well. So it's always, you need to get the best pricing.
Yeah.
So I would say, I would get an example. There was a fence that has fallen towards the tenant's property. Tenant did the right thing, gave us a call. And I went there, had a look, and it's just slightly. And I found the next door landlord's contact number and got into them. And I said, I have got a quote of this much. And I got another quote as well. And that person said, I can't do at that price at all. You go ahead. Right? And I spoke to the landlord, and then landlord said, that price is too high. And they go into this Airtasker and find some person and tell me, this is only 1/5 of the cost you're saying. Talk to that person and book that person. So if they get the quote, it's their responsibility to fix it now. And so look at the scenario I'm saying. So the tenant calls me and asks me what's happening here. But I can't get it fixed because now I'm in a fight between the landlord and this landlord because they are not happy to pay. I can get it fixed tomorrow. But the thing is, If I fix it, landlord has to pay that total amount where it needs to be shared. But this is just a one small example. So it's not easy. So the expectation of the tenants also is sometimes unfair because they need to give time to the landlord to make decisions, sort things out. They never know because it's two sides of the coin that you need to look into all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah. The world of property management can get complex, but I mean, as long as you communicate with the landlords, tenants, I think things can be much, much better. I mean, as you said, there's no need to go to VCAT if you have a good relationship with the tenant landlord because everything can be discussed and sorted out.
Yes, Naveen, because if you have spoken to the landlord and kept him in the loop of the tenant scenario, of course, the landlord will assist the tenant and get things sorted. I'm not talking about a bad tenant. I'm talking about an okay tenant.
Yeah.
So yes, it's the communication. The world of property management is communication. You do your communication right, manage your relationships.
Yeah.
Property management is going to be that.
There you go. The world of property management. Hope you enjoyed this podcast. Please check it out. Check out our other podcasts in the series. And I'll see you in the next podcast.